Hi everyone, I hope you can hear me okay there. I generally take it a little bit slow the first few minutes because often people sort of log in dead on the time and sometimes have the odd little thing with downloading the software or just getting settled and comfortable. So I'll take the next few minutes a little bit slower and just get everyone settled in, and then we'll press on. Just to sort of double check that everything's working as it should do, you should notice on your DWebinar toolbar that there's a sort of chat function, a question function, and that will later on at the end we'll be doing a question and answer session. You'll be able to use that to ask me questions. Could you all pop where you're basically calling in from, so it adds a bit of a getting to know you moment, so I know the kind of spread we've got, whether you're mainly in the UK or around other parts of the world. So just pop in that chat box where you are dialing in from, and that also shows me that all of the technology is working and we're all good to press on. Here we go, we're coming in now. So we've got Keith in Essex, we've got Jamie in London, Karen in from TFA in Kendal, Jean from Wisbech in Cambridgeshire, we've got Karina from Scope in London, Janine in Cambridge. So we're quite UK based in the audience. It's quite exciting to tell you that we've got two speakers today. We've got Melanie, who's also calling in from the UK, and we've got Kirsty Lydiard, who is originally from the UK, but she's calling in from Canada. So technology allowing, which we've already had a little test and we're feeling good and confident and comfortable. One of our guest speakers today is actually calling from there. We've also got Pam from Essex, Jessica from Cheshire, and Joe in Huntingdon. So there's a few more coming in and a few more to write on looking at the attendee list. But I'm feeling good and comfortable that you all can hear me anyway. It's the main thing. So I shall press on. Okay, so in terms of the webinar experience for those that haven't logged on before, as the bullet points here say really, you'll be able to hear myself and the speakers as you are at the moment, and you'll see our screens. Against popular belief, it's not a live video web stream, so you don't actually see us live on a webcam, but you hear us talking and you'll be able to see the contents of our screens as well. There's also going to be a few polls to keep it interactive, so you'll get to vote on your answers on the polls, and that would all make sense when we go ahead and do one in a moment. And as I said at the end, there's a Q&A session. So I think the presentation should take us up to around 20 to 2 o'clock UK time, and if it goes a bit over, it's no worries, but definitely time at the end where you can ask specific questions to the speakers or myself. So I'll basically in the chat box read out the relevant questions, and then we'll work out who's going to answer that for you. So welcome to Disability Webinars. A couple of you I noticed logged in last time, so welcome back, and many of you are here for the first time. Very quick bit of background information really. My name's Martin, so I'll be on the front page, you saw the picture there. I've been blogging since July 2009, much just about sort of everyday happenings as a disabled person living and working in London and doing a bit of travel, and really sort of it all started where I gave a couple of talks to younger disabled children, and I could see the kind of value in sharing everyday life experience. So I've then channeled that into my blog with articles and videos, and then it's sort of grown on from there, and one of the things that spun off is the use of the webinars. So back end of last year I delivered 15 webinar sessions, and the topics mirrored sort of a disabled person or any person's key life stages, and using my personal experiences. So obviously this is a step on where I'm trying to put in people who have their own experiences, everyday experiences different to my own, and also sort of professional inputs as well. If you want to kind of read any of the sentiments around those webinars I ran, there's an e-book which really sort of explains those life stages on my blog. And also, if you go to my blog and then /webinars, there's all of the videos, the 5 key subject videos there as well. So yeah, that's sort of the background as to why I've sort of come along and ended up creating webinars and what I'm trying to achieve. And then this is the second topic in 2012. In January, I did one around volunteering, which was a good sort of turnout and good feedback, and enabled me to learn and progress the format onwards. And if you look on that webinar page on my blog, I've set up topics up till June. So I'll share a bit more at the end, but for example, next month there'll be one on travel. So the topics are quite varied. Now, in terms of relationships, these are the 4 sorts of learning outcomes that I set out and what I hope you take away with you. We're going to be looking at self-perceptions of being disabled and in a relationship, perceptions of society towards disabled people and relationships, exploring the barriers faced by both partners, and also some tips and advice along the way. I think really, for those who have followed some of my blogs and also Disability Horizons, the magazine that I've been running, relationships is a difficult one. I think in life every person has ups and downs with relationships, but there in my opinion are more barriers and difficulties to relationships when you have a disability. But that's not to say they're not insurmountable. It's just that they have different and sort of different barriers in that area. And obviously with the articles we ran on Horizons, it showed that many people do want to talk about it and obviously read about it as well. I think the other problem with relationships actually is more around the lack of communication that people can have on it, and it's seen as quite a taboo subject. So even if the actual solutions are easy to come by, I think for many people the problem is not feeling as though they can talk about it. So I won't go into too much more detail. We've got 2 great guest speakers that are going to cover this in much better depth than I can. Before I move on to the first speaker, I'm just going to run a quick poll for you guys to get involved and interactive. So the first one I wanted to ask was, do you think relationships for disabled people are more difficult? So it's literally a simple yes or no. You can click on the answer there, and then once you've all voted, we'll have a pretty little graph that shows what everybody has said. And it just gives us a bit of a grounding to your views on the subject before we go ahead and embark on the topic at hand. So 77% of you have voted, so there's a couple more you need to hit yes or no, and then once you've all voted, I'll share the findings with you. Okay, so if we close that, and if I then share that with you, so you can see it's pretty unanimous that you all agree, or agree with my personal viewpoint, that indeed it is more difficult for disabled people. So I think without further ado, we'll press on and look to explore why that may be, and sort of unpick that a little bit more. So I'm going to pass over to Kirsty Lydiard, who is in Canada at the moment, as I mentioned earlier. Can you hear me okay there, Kirsty?
I can, yeah, I can.
Brilliant. Well, I'm just going to pass over the presenter mode so you can share your slides.
Brilliant, thank you.
Fingers crossed. But I can hear you fine, so that's a good sign so far.
Brilliant, that's a good start. So show my screen.
There we go. I can see your screen there. Yeah, I can see your slide. So I'm going to mute myself, and then when you're done, I'll come back on and we'll pass it back over, yeah?
Lovely, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, Martin. Well, my name's Kirsty Lydiard. I'm a sociologist now based within the School of Disability Studies at Ryerson University in Toronto, Canada. I've recently completed my PhD research at the University of Warwick, which actually looked in depth at disabled people's experiences of sex and relationships. So what I want to do today really is provide an overview of some of my research finds around this topic area, and also share some of my participants' experiences of their intimate relationships as well. So my research in a nutshell A question I get asked quite often is why sexuality? Why have you chosen to look at that aspect of the disabled person's experience? And my answer to that is always that our cultural reaction to disability and sexuality today remains generally one of silence. As Martin said in his intro, we're not very good at talking about it, and it's very much still a taboo subject. Now, the consequence of this, as many of you might know, is that disabled people continue to have sexualities denied or ignored through the continuation of common assumptions that they're asexual, that they lack sexual feeling and desire, or that they're sexually inadequate in some way. Now, possibly more relevant to today's webinar is the notion that disabled people can be assumed by many people to be both unloved and unlovable. However, we know that these ideas aren't true at all. Now, my other reason for researching this particular topic was that I'm also a disabled person myself, and so I've got a personal vested interest in the topic and in disabled people's rights more generally. So what did I do in the research? Well, for the most part I listened to and analysed disabled people's sexual stories in order to gain an in-depth understanding of the ways in which they experienced having their sexualities treated in such ways in society. And I also wanted to explore in a much broader sense people's experiences of their own sexual and intimate lives more generally, so things like what they enjoyed, what they didn't enjoy, how they felt about it, that kind of thing. So in total, 26 disabled men and women took part in the research. Now, most participants had congenital or acquired physical or sensory impairment and identified as heterosexual. So what to do in this presentation is take you through some of the key areas really of their experiences of relationships, and they are the impact of what's called internalised depression, and I'll come on to explain this a little bit more in a minute, and then issues around care and caring, and then finally on to sex at the end. So before we go on, I should say that out of the 26 people that took part, 21 reported that they had actually been in a relationship with a partner before, and 12 of these people were in a relationship at the time of taking part in the research. Now, of these 12 people, only one had a fellow partner with a disability, and the rest had non-disabled partners. So the finding I'm going to highlight initially relates to the way in which participants' internalised depression impacted or could impact upon their relationships. Now, internalised depression is the ways in which our dominant messages in society about disability, most of which are negative, can result in disabled people having low self-esteem or low self-worth and low self-confidence. Now, many of my participants said that their relationships with partners actually offered them a safe space where they could feel sexy, desirable, attract, and a space where they could gain esteem, confidence and self-worth. However, at the same time, for many people, internalised depression meant that the relationship was also a place where they devalued themselves. Now, by this I mean that people felt that their partners, who we must remember had chosen to be with them for many reasons, deserved more. So people felt that they weren't good enough to be with their non-disabled partner. And I think we can see this quite explicitly in Rona's quote on the slide here. She says, "He adored me, but I always felt as though I didn't deserve him." So our public or outside societal perceptions of disability actually have impact inside our relationships. Now, for some people, the impact of internalised depression went much further, and their low self-esteem made them feel like they didn't deserve any better when partners treated them badly, for example, a partner cheating on them. Now, many participants had experienced this in past relationships, and I've put some of people's quotes on inside the pink bubble for you there, just to give you an idea of people's experiences. Now, I should stress that this treatment is by no means an inevitable consequence of disability as part of a relationship, but for many of my participants it was part of their experiences, or at least had been in past relationships. Now, another way that the public or outside could have an effect on people's relationships inside could be seen in the way that some participants tended to stay in unhappy relationships because of a range of fears related to the outside world. For example, some people talked about a real fear of rejection should they try to attempt to find a new partner. Things like they would worry, would anybody else want them? Would they be accepted by a new partner? Would it be scary to be single again? Or how would they teach a new partner about the daily realities of living with a disability? So for some of my participants, a relationship, regardless of its quality, was considered to be a better option than being without a partner at all. Now, some other people stayed in unhappy relationships because they felt having a partner was a public sign of worth for friends, family, and also strangers, this notion that having a partner somehow made them more normal. So to sum up then, participants' internalised depressions, the way that they took in or took on society's negative messages about disability, could actually impact upon their relationships in a variety of ways, mainly through not feeling worthy enough to be with partners or being scared of being single again after the considerable time it took for many of them to find a partner in the first place. Now, I think this is very important because it shows the ways in which our private relationships are very much shaped by public society, but also that these feelings of low self-worth are not a person's fault, and that this feeling this way can be an understandable consequence of the ways in which we construct disability within society. So on to the next finding. Now, care and caring was very much central in people's stories for both good and bad reasons. Some people said that their partner providing care for them actually added to their closeness and intimacy as a couple. One partner said that it made her and her partner's sex life better because it made them closer. However, generally across the board, most people felt uncomfortable with the idea of their partner having to carry out caring tasks for them. Now, some participants said that their partners weren't very good at carrying out caring tasks, and that they had to put up with or pretend to be okay with their partners carrying out caring tasks in a way that they didn't really like. So having to feign emotions on the surface when we're not feeling them on the inside is called emotional work. The things like having to be tolerant or having to be grateful when we often feel the opposite. Now, I think that putting up with clumsy care is one thing, but many people in the research said that they deliberately avoided arguments at times where their partner was providing care, and this was because they were in fear of care being taken away or withdrawn by a partner. And we can see this in Terry's quote on the slide there. He said, "If I'm with a girlfriend, I can't easily be irritated by the things they do because I've got to rely on them for help. If I haven't had an argument with a girlfriend unless it's been at a time where I don't need for any help." Now, for those who paid for personal assistance via PAs, a very different set of issues could arise. Many people commented on the difficult dynamic of the partner, the disabled person, and the PA. Now, Rona's quote at the bottom of the slide there shows the real difficulty that many people had. She said, "I see my carers as facilitators, whereas my ex saw them as an infringement of our privacy." So this could actually be a very, very difficult situation for many people, and for the disabled person particularly, it could take extraordinary amounts of management, negotiation and organisation of this complex situation to ensure that both their partner and PA were happy at the same time or content in their relationships at the same time. Now, once again, this gave the disabled person, as the receiver of assistance or care, considerable amounts of work to do just to ensure that these very vital relationships functioned. Now, I think this is important because we very much often look at the disabled person's role in the care relationship, and we focus on the work of the carer or the PA. Now, I know Mel's got some really good advice around care and caring coming up that she'll share with you in a moment. So now on to sex, which is always a good place to end up. To start off with, many participants who were in relationships talked about their sex and sexual pleasure freely, and did so without the shame that our cultural and societal messages about disability can produce. And we can see this again in Rona's account. She said, "Sex was brilliant and we enjoyed each other immensely. Intimacy, proximity, sensations, comedy, lack of control, feeling desired, and being treated roughly and as though I might not break, and not as though I might break." However, participants experienced extensive voyeurism of their sexual relationships. Now, when I use the term voyeurism, I'm referring to the ways in which participants said that friends, family, even strangers asked them about their sexual desires and practices. Terry said that he always got his girlfriend asking, "What's it like?" Or people asking his girlfriend, sorry, "What's it like having sex with a disabled person?" Now, while innocent curiosity may be natural, voicing it, I think, is a very different matter. And participants found this embarrassing, hurtful, humiliating, and intrusive as well. And it could be a particularly difficult point for people's partners who are often put in equally embarrassing situations. Now, despite really enjoying sex and talking about sex freely, some people in my research said they felt very pressured by some of the common ideas we have about sex in society. So in society, we position good and successful sex very much as penetrative, as spontaneous, as mutually pleasurable. So sex is very narrowly defined. Now, also common is that our bodies and the sex we have should look like something out of a Hollywood sex scene, which often doesn't happen. Our gender roles must also not stray. We position real men to be sexually dominating and impulsive, while women should just look feminine and look sexy. Now, these sexual norms are actually deep-rooted in our media, in our culture, and in science and biology. And while these common ideas about sex can be problematic and restrictive, I think, for all people, whether disabled or not, they can be particularly problematic for disabled people whose bodies may sit further away from this supposed ideal. Now, my participants said that living up to these sexual norms left them feeling pressured and frustrated. However, many participants in relationships overcame these pressures because they talked openly with their partners and they had fun exploring and experimenting with different types of sex, and they learned to enjoy their sexual relationships in a multitude of different ways. So for these couples, these participants in relationships, moving away from this very false idea of what we all think of as normal or what we should be doing in sex, and experimenting, communicating and exploring with partners could improve people's experiences. Any issues that impairment and disability may bring to sex in a relationship, many of my participants had issues with things like spontaneity, incontinence, body worries, pain. They can all be worked through, and many of my participants did. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation. I just wanted to give a little flavour of my findings and my work as a whole. If you'd like to know any more about the research, I've produced a short research summary which details the key findings to come out of the research. And I think Martin is making the PDF available, or if not, you can email me as well.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll share all of the links and attachments when I email the video as well, which will be available of the whole webinar afterwards. So thank you very much for that, Kirsty. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
And yeah, obviously, what I'll do, I'll mute you now, as I said, and then I'll bring you back on the Q&A at the end. So if anyone has any specific questions, we can do that at the end, yeah? Great. Okay, so I'm just going to run another quick poll to check you're all okay out there and still feeling interactive and good. I found that so useful, and I think a lot of you would agree there's a lot of elements that resonate, whether you're a disabled person working in the field. There really was a lot of points that for me certainly did resonate, and I had experience of that myself. So the next poll I want to ask you is launching as we speak, I believe. So what is the hardest part of relationships for disabled people? Is it self-perception, partner's perception, friends, family opinions, society stereotypes, or the purely sort of physical interactions? So if you'll click one of those answers, and then again I'll share in a few seconds once you've done it what the general outcome from you all was. They're coming in as I speak, which is always good. Okay, there's a couple more of you to still vote at the moment. Interesting. I'm seeing the results as they come in, or the bar chart moving around. It's quite cool seeing what you're all thinking as it happens. Okay, I'm going to now share the results. There's possibly a couple more. I don't know if you're able to do it or not. There we go. We're all done. Okay, so to share that with you. So I think it's society stereotypes, but self-perception isn't far behind. So, and there are a few of you did vote on all of them as well, so it's quite across the board really. I guess that probably just typifies the fact that it is all of the above in different ways, and for every individual the different areas of that would change as well. Great, well thank you for joining on the poll there. I shall remember to say that once I did a webinar where I forgot to hide, so someone was delivering their slides but the audience could only see the bar for the rest of the time. Okay, so now without further ado I'm going to pass over to Melanie. So can you hear me okay, Melanie?
Yes, Martin, I can, thanks.
Brilliant. Okay, well I'll pass the presenter over. Yeah, I can hear you fine. That's all good. Okay, I'll mute myself, Melanie, and I'll leave you to it.
All right, thanks, Martin. Hi, everybody. My name's Melanie Hallaker, and I run Spokespeople. Spokespeople is an organisation which provides emotional support for people with physical disabilities, their partners, and sometimes healthcare professionals as well. We provide counselling, support groups, workshops, and also sex and relationship advice and support, as we feel this is a very neglected area. Basically, I set up Spokespeople because many people with disabilities say they want access to healthcare professionals who understand what living with a disability is like. Also, many people with disabilities have spent a lot of time in hospitals and in the medical system where the focus is on your impairment, on the physical rehab of your impairment and body, and kind of how you cope with living with a disability and how your partner copes with it is often forgotten. Yet really, when you think about it, disability impacts on so many areas of life that sometimes extra support is needed with things like relationships, self-esteem, assertiveness, and dealing with emotions such as anger, resentment, loss, frustration, and sadness. So today I'm hoping to really offer some tips and advice from my perspective as the Director of Spokespeople and also as one of the counsellors. I also hope to share from my own personal experiences because I'm married to someone who has a physical disability, and offer some ideas, advice and tips on how you can move forward with the issues that Kirsty's research has highlighted. First of all, I just want to talk about why support for relationships is important, and just to give you a few statistics really, that research has shown that the chance of mental health issues like anxiety and depression is a lot higher for people who are in a relationship where one person or both have a disability. Also, the research, this is quite old research from the 90s, but I think it's probably still valid, shows that divorce and separation is higher than average when people acquire a disability, and especially if it's the woman who acquires a disability. Also, statistics show that less people with disabilities are in a relationship compared to the able-bodied population. And I think that most listeners probably agree when we're looking at the poll that Martin has just done. So all of this indicates to me that there is a problem that needs looking at. And at Spokespeople, we feel it's important to offer this support so that people can maintain their relationships or find one if they're single. And we're passionate about this because we feel that relationships offer people a lot of stability when maybe everything around you is changing if you've acquired a disability. Relationships offer you a lot of love, joy, support, well-being. They also help to reduce your workload and your stress and increase your self-worth. I'm just going to move on to the next slide, and I'm just going to touch on Kirsty's issue of internalized depression, and it's something that I have come across with quite a lot of my clients. And the first example I want to talk about is devotees, and I've just given a definition of that. A devotee in the disabled community is an individual who wants to have relationships with people with disabilities. So a devotee is a person who has a fetish, usually with a specific disability. And devotees usually frequent certain blogs, chat rooms or dating sites in search of individuals who share their fetish so that they can interact with them. So first of all, I'd like to say that this type of relationship is okay if there is mutual consent between both partners. However, in my experience from working with people with disabilities, people that I've worked with who are in a devotee relationship, these relationships seem to be unbalanced. And usually it was the case that the person with the disability is the subordinate in the relationship. So if you think about, sometimes there's master and slave, the person with the disability was the slave. And these people generally kind of communicated to me that they felt unhappy, yet felt that this was the only type of relationship open to them. Sometimes there was physical or emotional abuse, like making fun of the disability. Sometimes the devotee also involved other sexual partners because it was harder having sex because of the disability. And this caused a lot of issues for the person with the disability. In all of these cases, the person with the disability had low self-esteem and low confidence and craved the desire and the approval of the devotee, and of course what Kirsty was also saying about the status of actually being in a relationship and how that makes you feel normal. The second point I want to raise is poor body image, and I think because of being in the medical system and using hospitals and things like that, where the impairment is seen as separate from the rest of your body, and also your partner is often excluded from the rehab. Many people that I've worked with have got a poor body image. We also have to remember that a lot of able-bodied people, in fact the majority, also have issues with body image because of how the media portrays beauty and searching for the perfect body. And of course body image and desirability are linked, and if you can't love yourself and your own body, then it's only natural to see that you might struggle with intimacy. We have a forum on our website, and one lady on there talks about having an ileostomy, which is a stoma bag, and she talks about struggling to find relationships, then struggling with when to tell them about the fact that she's got a stoma bag, and then at the moment of actually having sex she struggles with being intimate as well. One of the other examples of internalized oppression in my view are also when people avoid other people with disabilities, and in my experience it's often when someone acquires a disability, so they have an accident or an injury and they don't want to be associated with other people with disabilities. They don't want to belong to this disabled group in society. But the downside of that is, of course, that you're missing a lot of peer support, because most people with disabilities are surrounded only by able-bodied people. Now, I'd like to just touch on care. Again, this is something that comes up quite often with my clients. And first of all, I want to talk about fatigue, because this seems to be a major issue for many couples where one person has a disability. In the work that I do, I try and help people to contain the spread of disability. So what that means is that we help to make sure that the care tasks are not the main focus of the disability and the main focus of the relationship. So I help people to look at the care task, to look at prioritizing the task to reduce fatigue on both people. I also look at how people communicate with their partner about care, and also how to negotiate new roles. And I think Kirsty already touched on that. We very much have this idea about masculinity and femininity. So it's the man who takes out the rubbish and does the DIY, and it's the woman who does the cleaning and the cooking. And where there's a disability involved, we might have to look at those roles and adjust what we see masculine and feminine according to what we're both able to do in the relationship. Sometimes it's also useful to bring in outsiders to provide respite for the partner who's the carer, so that they have time to do things that are important for their identity and self-worth. So they can do hobbies, visit family, and do activities and holidays. And I think it's important that there is respite for both people in the relationship. I'm going to move on to sex now. And again, I've got fatigue in here. It's a major problem for people's sex lives as well. And that's because of the care task, that's because of the disability task, and also because of things like social services and benefits and all the other kind of assessments you have to go through. They all take a lot of time and energy, and so there's less time for sex and intimacy. And also it has a way of sucking your libido and your interest in sex. Kind of advice that we give to people is to try and incorporate planning into sex. And most people say, hey, you know, sex has to be spontaneous, but this is a myth. You know, you can actually turn planning into something exciting if you think of planning a role play evening, or you know, going out to dinner and doing something else after that. If you plan it, you can still make it exciting yet reduce the impact of fatigue. We also suggest that it's important to involve your partner if you are planning an event or planning an evening where you're going to have sex. If you can, it might be useful to involve a mate or a friend to help reduce the care tasks on your partner. Maybe help them to set up the bedroom or set up any equipment or things like that. I also want to touch again on body image and sex, because this can be very important when it comes to your flirting skills and reducing your inhibitions if you feel that you don't like your body and you have difficulties accepting your body and loving it. And I think it is important to get one-to-one support from a counsellor or a sex therapist to help you through those issues. There can of course be physical difficulties when it comes to sex. Things like your sexual functioning can be affected because of your disability, your mobility may be affected, and you may have pain or spasms. And we generally advise people to first of all communicate with your partner and see how they feel about your sex life, see if they want to change anything, because sometimes it might be that you want to change things but the partner might actually be okay with how it is now. It might be useful to visit your GP for help with medication and to help with pain, with spasms and with erection difficulties. Also, I'd just like to touch on the fact that a lot of us are lacking in sex education. If you were born with a disability and have been to a special school, often not much sex education has been provided. But even at mainstream schools, you know, it's a long time ago for me since I had sex education. So I think all of us could do with brushing up on it. And a website you might want to look at is Channel 4's Sex Education Show's website, which is Sexperience. So it's worth looking at that to see, is there anything that I still need to learn about sex? And I also think there's a myth about penetrative sex, that the only way to have sex is penis, vagina, and very much we try and encourage people to think outside the box. And I think one of the skills that many people with disabilities have is they've had to be creative and they're resilient. And I think you can apply that to your sex life. You can learn about other erogenous zones outside your genital area. You can learn about what turns you on, learn how to masturbate, because the more that you know, the more that you can please others, and the more easier it is for your partner to please you. And there are also sex aids available out there which could make your sex life easier. Things like cushion masturbation aids, chairs, swings and gripping aids, and all sorts of things like that. So all in all, I think there's a lot that people can do to improve their relationships and sex lives. I think it's first off about assessing whether you have any issues around body image or low self-esteem, and to have a think about whether this is communicated to your partner or your potential partner through body posture, through grooming, and through your behaviour. And it might be worth asking friends around you to see, you know, whether they think you're a good potential mate and what their viewpoint is. I also think it's important to find others with disabilities so that you can grow together or join a support group. And it may be that you need one-to-one support with a counsellor or a sex therapist as well. This slide just really shows you the perks of the disabled relationship, because I generally feel that the negatives of disability are so well documented by social services, by the NHS and by media, that it's up to you, I think, to provide the balance. So you break out of this downward circle. So things like research shows that disabled people actually make better lovers because they are better at communicating and have to negotiate things and be creative. Sorry about that, that's my doorbell going. Also, that being in a relationship where one person has this, offers the opportunity for personal growth, or tolerance, more honesty and trust. And I think that it's really about celebrating the perks of being with someone who has a disability. Even things like free parking and cinema tickets are a perk. I also think that life is a self-fulfilling prophecy, in that if you work on your self-esteem and identify what's good about being with you, that will only have positive effects. And if all else fails, I say to people, print a t-shirt saying disabled people make better lovers. Dare you to ask me why. Okay, and this next slide is just a brief snapshot of our website, and you can see my mouse moving. So here you can see this is our online forum where you can ask questions around sex and relationships. We also have a helpline, the 0845 number, where you can get initial support around sex and relationships. And also further along under information, you can find resources and articles to help you. And then at the bottom of the page you can sign up to a quarterly newsletter, which is news and events, but we also have themes and tips around living with disability. Also just like to mention that there are lots of self-help books out there. If you look on Amazon or even Google books, you can type things like advice around relationships, self-help around confidence, and plenty out there. But if all of this isn't helping, then I do think it might be worth thinking about specific support through counselling, workshops or groups. And then finally, that's just my contact details. So in conclusion, I agree with Kirsty's research, and not all of it has been positive, but I hope I've shown here that there are ways that you can move forward and improve your existing relationships or increase your chances of finding a healthy relationship. And thank you for listening, and I'll try and pass back to you now.
Great, thank you very much for that, Melanie. It's always good when the doorbell or the phone goes on the webinar, but it's
oh, fantastic!
That's happened to me as well. Cool.
Can you still hear me, Martin?
Yep. I'm going to also bring
Okay,
Kirsty.
I just wanted to say. Okay, I just wanted to say if people want the link to this experience website, I can add that to my slides.
Brilliant. And yeah, and also I can sort of send out any leaflets and contact details with the email as well, so that should be fine. Okay, well, if you got to want to start asking any questions, I'm going to bring Kirsty back as well, and unless there's any sort of too much interference, we'll hopefully all be able to talk at the same time.
Great.
Can you hear us, Kirsty?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Okay, there's a little bit of bouncing around from the speakers to the microphone. I don't know if you can turn down the speakers a little bit.
Does that help?
Yeah, I think that's better.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, no, thank you both for that. I mean, I think hopefully everyone else can see the format really, that Kirsty's obviously provided sort of overarching research and sort of gathering lots of information on the topic and been able to draw out general sort of findings and outcomes from that. And then Melanie sort of mirrored that, but it also came from a more, having done it in the day job and the counselling and working with disabled people week in, week out on those sort of issues and helping them. And it gave from my point, it gave a really nice balance. So thank you for both sharing that. Can you both hear me okay there, Kirsty and Melanie?
Yeah,
yes, I can.
I thought I'd lost you.
No, I'm still here.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, as I say to everyone else, I've got if you go down to questions on your toolbar, and you can type in there anything you want to ask myself or Kirsty or Melanie, whether it's about specifically the presentation or it could be something a bit that wasn't covered. You might even want to just add in some thoughts of your own that I can sort of read out and share to everyone. But also, I think if you want to remain anonymous, put anon before your question and I won't read your name, so you can feel comfortable that I know who you are if you want to ask an anonymous question. Okay, I've got one here that came in just before I said that, so I'm going to read it as anonymous just in case. Someone put, I personally have accepted I'm not likely to ever find a relationship. I think my disability holds me back, too afraid to ever ask anyone out, fear of rejection and humiliation. How can I get around that? Do either of you want to take that?
Sorry, Martin, can you just repeat that?
Yep, so I personally have accepted I'm not likely to ever find a relationship. I think my disability holds me back, too afraid to ever ask anyone out for fear of rejection and humiliation. How can I get around that?
I mean, I'm happy to answer that or did you want to go, Kirsty?
No, you fire away, I'll chip in if there's anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, a really common thing that people say, and that, definitely first of all I would say don't feel like you're the only person who feels that way. I think, yeah, it's hard for me to say because I don't know what kind of support you've had. It might be that you feel you've tried everything, you've tried support groups, you've tried counselling, you've tried all these things, but if you haven't, then I would definitely say that it is worth looking at, because it might be that if you can work on your confidence and you can work on your assertiveness skills, your flirting skills, that there, it might be a way that you can move forward and can be in a relationship. I will readily agree that it isn't easy if you have a disability. But I speak to a lot of people, for example, who hardly ever go out, and don't groom themselves, don't look after themselves, and then it's this downward cycle, and are going to struggle to find a relationship because they're not getting out there and they're not necessarily making themselves as attractive as they could be to the opposite sex. So yeah, definitely I think what you're saying is very real, and I think a lot of people would have the same opinion. But if it's possible to find support with other people who have disabilities or from professionals like myself, I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah, I would agree with all of what Mel said there, and the only thing I can really add to that is that many people in the research said that they did find the experience of finding a partner a very difficult situation, and a lot of that was about poor access to adult social and sexual spaces. And a lot of people, of my participants particularly, weren't in employment, and if you think a lot of people meet their partners at work, that was a considerable barrier. But many people that I spoke to were in relationships, so it is possible. It's just about, kind of like you said, Mel, making use of peer support networks, I think, to improve self-esteem and hope, and really kind of getting out there and trying to do the best you can in the kind of spaces that are accessible to you.
Yeah, I think also, everybody's situation is different, but I have spoken to people who have been very sheltered from a lot of opportunities that other teenagers get to learn flirting skills, to learn, how to get on with people from the opposite sex, and I think that, that's all skills that we have to learn, so that is achievable, but you do have to find those opportunities to get out there.
Yeah, a lot of my participants actually used online forums or chat rooms or dating sites to meet partners, and they found that a really useful way of getting to know people and communicating before you've got the sudden hint of either having to disclose the disability or, before you've got that reality, the difficulty of getting, to know someone. Many people found that quite a useful avenue, and also the internet's a very accessible space as well, so that can be a real, point of use for many people.
Yeah, indeed, that is indeed how I met my current partner, through the internet.
Okay, we've got a couple of other questions coming in now. So one of them was, I feel that the government and policies about benefits and care packages are biased against disabled people having relationships. Do you think that?
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I think there are many kind of policy-induced barriers for disabled people. Like some people in my research wouldn't had social services that wouldn't issue them double beds, for example, or wouldn't issue them if they were in institutional care or in respite care. They weren't allowed to have their partners share a room with them, and all those kinds of things. So there's these kind of policy and governmental structural barriers to disabled people entering relationships that do exist as well. So I would agree with that.
Yeah, and again, that is something that we can help people with and give advice around. I also know of some other organisations who would go into, for example, care homes and negotiate with the staff members to allow people to have privacy, so that they can masturbate if they're on their own or with a partner, or have sex with a partner.
Okay, and then another question was, I have Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I feel that I can't have sex due to being weak.
I'll go for this first, if that's okay, Mel. This is something that came up in the research hugely in terms of mobility. I spoke to many people who are wheelchairs, with many people actually with degenerative neuromuscular conditions. I actually have muscular dystrophy myself as well. So basically it's about changing what sex is to you, and I think I touched on that in my presentation. We can have sex in many, many different ways. It doesn't just, as Mel said as well, it doesn't just have to be the man on top of the woman in a really kind of active action man type position. Sex doesn't have to be like that. Sexual pleasure can actually be gained in many different ways without even having to move a muscle in the body, so there's ways to experiment and really have fun exploring the different ways that you can move away from this kind of quite restrictive ideal.
Yeah, and I think I can add a good example there. I know that people with spinal cord injury, sometimes they're paralysed and they lack sensation in their genital areas, but in that case what often happens is that they get increased sensation above the area of injury, to the point research has shown they can actually orgasm by stroking these areas. So yeah, I definitely think it's about trying to get away from this standard idea of what sex is.
Yeah, with my participants, I often found that not only kind of were people having sex that they really enjoyed, but they were doing so in quite bizarre, wonderful ways. So, you know, it is possible to receive sexual pleasure and to give sexual pleasure and really be part of a healthy kind of sexual relationship just by moving away from these ideals that we have, and exploring and finding new ways, as Mel says, to use your body in different ways, to get away from the norms that we have.
Yeah, so it's about thinking outside of the box, isn't it, and not
Definitely.
comparing it to Hollywood movies as we are sort of trained subliminally to do so, I think. Okay, we've got a couple more minutes, so I'll try and get to them now. Someone said, my trouble is in accepting what I'm physically unable to do as easily as my partner who can do it without hassle, such as a night away with friends, etc. I find myself resenting him for this and take it out on him as anything I do which doesn't seem to compare to what he gets to do. My question is, how do others find a way to accept this?
Well, I think from my experience as a counsellor, when it comes to resentment, I think it's like a taboo. It's a taboo emotion. People don't want to talk about it, and if you don't talk about it, then it's going to build up and cause more havoc in the future, or lead to an explosion or things like that. So definitely, you know, talking about it is the first place to start, and just by talking about it alone and sharing it with your partner can already reduce the impact of that resentment. And it's something that we do work a lot with in counselling to help people to process those negative emotions and find a place for them.
Brilliant. Have you got anything?
I would agree.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just again, I'll reiterate Mel's point about communication. That there, even in relationships where there aren't disabled people, there needs to be communication, and very good communication, particularly about things such as resentment or, you know, arguments, things like that. So I would definitely tell this person to talk to their partner about why they feel this way and maybe what they can do together to alleviate those feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, communication is always key. Okay, so another question is, do you agree that employment and access to income is an important factor in self-esteem as it enables you to participate in society?
I would say hugely. Not only does having the financial ability to go out, to meet people, to buy nice clothes, to make yourself feel nice, to do those kinds of things, to make yourself kind of feel confident enough to go out and meet people, hugely comes down to money. Even finding accessible transport, paying for taxis to get to clubs or pubs to meet people takes a considerable amount of money as well. And again, like I said earlier, I think employment is a huge thing. Employment brings self-esteem, it brings self-worth, it kind of makes you feel valuable in our, you know, capitalist society that we live in. So I would say not being in it is a huge barrier to how people feel about themselves.
Yeah, and I just think I could add there is a stereotype that employment means working 9 to 5, which I don't think always works for a lot of people with disabilities, and I also think that if for whatever reason you're unable of, you know, being employed in paid work, that things like volunteering can still give you a lot of purpose and structure and enjoyment and opportunities to meet people as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I guess if, like you say, someone is unable to work for any reason, it's about finding that self-fulfillment and esteem, whether it's volunteering, hobbies, or any other way. It's sort of down to the individual to work out how to find that self-esteem for themselves, I suppose. Okay, so we've got one more question. I have DMD and I'm on heart medication, and I worry if having sex could have a detrimental effect on my heart.
I can just say that I can't offer any medical advice. That's not my role. All I can say is visit your GP to try and discuss the issue. I can't say any more than that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah, in terms of the medical impact, just from general experience, I know that there are people with heart conditions who do have sex, but in terms of whether it's safe to do so, yeah, definitely visit your GP.
And also, did you say the person had DMD?
Yes, that's right.
Because the Muscular Dystrophy campaign do some really brilliant advice on sex and relationships, so I would also try there as well as a source of information. They do great fact sheets on different types of neuromuscular conditions and sex and medication and things, so I'll definitely have a look at their website.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Good to know. Like you say, I think that there's obviously certain questions that an individual would have to visit themselves and maybe seek medical support as well. But yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, that's the end of the questions. Do you two have anything kind of finally that you want to finish with or add?
No, just thank you very much. Feel free to get in touch if you'd like to discuss any further, anything that I've touched upon, and for a copy of the research summary as well. So.
Yeah, and the same for me if people want to get in touch or have got additional questions. Yeah, and thank you for listening. It's been great to share and talk to everybody.
Yeah, well, thank you both for joining in, and I'm so glad that the technology went smoothly as well. So
yeah.
Oh, same here. I'm so relieved.
And I think, this is something we can revisit if people feed back the types of information that they need or want for their own relationships and their own life. Then, we can always do another one later on in the year and tailor it a bit.
Definitely.
Thank you very much for both joining. I'll sign off today and say that the next webinar is the 28th of March. I haven't got the registration link up just yet, but there'll be news on my website of that, and that's going to be on how to travel with disability. And I'll actually be presenting that from my trip to Spain, so I'll have to get the internet connection sorted out there as well. But yeah, thank you to everyone for joining in. I'll send out an evaluation questionnaire and the video recording of today, so you can watch it back and you can share it with friends as well. So until next month, yeah, thanks a lot, and I'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.